Section 33 of The Treasure Chest of My Book House. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Treasure Chest of My Book House, edited by Olive Beaupre Miller. The Swineherd by Hans Christian Andersen. There was once a poor prince. He had only quite a tiny kingdom, but it was big enough to allow him to marry, and he was bent upon marrying. Now it certainly was rather bold of him to say to the emperor's daughter, "Will you have me?" He did, however, venture to say so, for his name was known far and wide, and there were hundreds of princesses who would have said "Yes," and "Thank you kindly," but see if she would. Just let us hear about it. A rose tree grew on the grave of the prince's father. Such a beautiful rose tree! It only bloomed every 5th year, and then only bore one blossom. But what a rose that was! By merely smelling it, one forgot all one's cares and sorrows. Then he had a nightingale which sang as if every lovely melody in the world dwelt in her little throat. This rose and this nightingale were to be given to the princess, so they were put into great silver caskets and sent to her. The emperor had them carried before him into the great hall where the princess was playing at visiting with her ladies in waiting. They had nothing else to do. When she saw the caskets with the gifts, she clapped her hands with delight. "If only it were a little pussy cat," said she. But there was the lovely rose. "Oh, how wonderfully it's made!" said all the ladies in waiting. "It is more than beautiful," said the emperor. "It is neat." But the princess touched it, and then she was ready to cry. "Fie, papa," she said. "It is not made at all. It is nothing but a real rose." "Fie," said all the ladies in waiting. "It is nothing but a real rose." "Well, let us see what there is in the other casket before we get angry," said the emperor, and out came the nightingale. It sang so beautifully that at first no one could find anything to say against it. "Superbe! Charmant!" said the ladies in waiting, for they all chattered French, each one worse than the other. "How that bird reminds me of our late empress' musical box," said an old courtier. "Ah, yes, they are the same tunes, and the same beautiful expression." "So they are," said the emperor, and he cried like a child. "I should hardly think it could be a real bird," said the princess. "Yes, it is a real one," said those who had brought it. "Then let it fly away," said the princess, and she positively refused to see the prince. But he was not to be discouraged. He stained his face brown and black, and, pulling his cap over his eyes, he knocked at the door. "Good morning, Emperor," said he. "Can I be taken into service in the palace?" "Well, there are so many wishing to do that," said the emperor. "But let me see. Yes, I need somebody to look after the pigs, for we have so many of them." So the prince was made imperial swineherd. A horrid little room was given him near the pigsties, and here he had to live. The whole day long he sat busily at work, and by evening he had made a beautiful little pot with bells all round it. When the pot boiled, the bells rang out merrily and played the old tune, "Alas, my darling Augustine, all is lost, lost, lost." But the most peculiar thing about it was that by holding one's finger in the steam, one could immediately smell what kind of meals were being cooked at every stove in the town. Now this was a very different matter from the rose. The princess came walking along with all her ladies in waiting, and when she heard the tune she stopped at once and looked greatly pleased, for she too could play "Alas, my darling Augustine." It was the only tune that she could play on the piano, and she played it with only one finger. "Why, that is my tune," she said. "This must be a well-educated swineherd. Listen, you must go in and ask him what the price of that instrument is." So one of the ladies in waiting had to go in, but she put wooden shoes on first, so as not to soil her slippers. "How much do you want for the pot?" she asked. "I must have 10 kisses from the princess," said the swineherd. "Mercy on us!" said the lady. "I won't take less," said the swineherd. "Well, what does he say?" asked the princess. "I really cannot tell you," said the lady in waiting. "It is too shocking." "Then you must whisper it." And she whispered it. "He's a wretch!" said the princess, and they went away at once. But she had only gone a little way when she heard the bells tinkling beautifully. "Alas, my darling Augustine, all is lost, lost, lost." "Go and ask him if he will take 10 kisses from my ladies in waiting." "No, thank you," said the swineherd. "10 kisses from the princess, or I keep my pot." "How tiresome he is!" said the princess. "Then you will have to stand round me, so that no one may see." So the ladies in waiting stood round her and spread out their skirts while the swineherd took his 10 kisses, and then the princess got the pot. What a delight it was to them! The pot was kept on the boil day and night. They knew what was cooking on every stove in the town, from the chamberlain's to the shoemaker's. The ladies in waiting danced about and clapped their hands. "We know who has sweet soup and pancakes for dinner, and who has cutlets. How amusing it is!" "Highly interesting," said the mistress of the robes. "Yes, but you must keep the secret of how I got it, for I am the emperor's daughter," said the princess. "Mercy on us! Quite so," they all answered. The swineherd, that is to say the prince, only nobody knew that he was not a real swineherd, did not let a day pass in idleness, and he now constructed a rattle. When it was swung round it played all the waltzes, gallops, and jig tunes which have ever been heard since the creation of the world. "But this is superb!" said the princess as she walked by. "I have never heard finer compositions. Go and ask him what the instrument costs. But let us have no more kissing." "He wants 100 kisses from the princess," said the lady in waiting. "I think he is mad," said the princess, and she went away. But she had not gone far when she stopped. "One must encourage art," she said. "I am the emperor's daughter. Tell him he can have 10 kisses, the same as yesterday, and he can take the others from the ladies in waiting." "But we don't like that at all," said the ladies. "Oh, nonsense! If I can kiss him, you can do the same. Remember that I pay your wages as well as give you board and lodging." So the lady in waiting had to go to the swineherd again. "100 kisses from the princess," said he, "or let each keep his own." "Stand in front of me then," said the princess, and all the ladies in waiting stood round while the swineherd kissed her. "Whatever is the meaning of that crowd round the pigsties?" said the emperor, who had stepped out on to the balcony. He rubbed his eyes and put on his spectacles. "Why, it is the ladies in waiting. What game are they up to? I must go and see." So he pulled up the heels of his slippers, for they were shoes which he had trodden down. Bless us, what a hurry he was in! When he got into the yard he walked very softly, and the ladies were so busy counting the kisses, so that there should be fair play, and neither too few nor too many kisses, that they never heard the emperor. He stood on tiptoe. "What is all this?" he said, when he saw that the swineherd and the princess were kissing each other, and he thumped them on the head with his slipper, just as the swineherd was taking the 86th kiss. "Be off with you!" cried the emperor, for he was furious, and on the spot he expelled both the princess and the swineherd from his empire. There stood the princess crying, and the rain poured down in torrents. "Oh, miserable creature that I am!" cried the princess. "If only I had accepted the handsome prince who sent me the rose and the nightingale! Oh, how unhappy I am!" But the swineherd went behind a tree, wiped the black and brown stain from his face, and threw away his ugly clothes. Then he came forward in princely attire, so handsome that the princess could not help curtsying to him. "Thou hast taught me to despise thee," he said. "Thou wouldst not have an honorable prince. Thou couldst not value the real rose or the nightingale, but thou wouldst kiss a swineherd for the sake of a silly toy, a trumpery made musical box. As thou hast chosen, so must thou abide." Then he went back into his own little kingdom and shut and locked the door. So she had to stand outside and sing in earnest. Alas, my darling Augustine, all is lost, lost, lost. End of Section 33. Recording by Maricel Kui.